Joe and Brescia and Ollie and Harry and Sam as well. Sam, good to talk to you today as well. A familiar face because you're involved in the Politibabble podcast.
Yeah, both Brescia and I actually are two of the three members of Politibabble.
You've been doing the Politibabble podcast for how long now?
Since lockdown, so about 6 months.
And what brought it on?
Well, it was a mixture of we've always been kind of politically active and interested. A little bit of boredom over quarantine. But yeah, we really wanted to start getting more young people engaged in the way that we were and to start up discussions.
How's it going?
Really well, actually. We've had emails in, we've interviewed politicians. Yeah, it's been good.
Brescia, how are you finding it?
I think it's, a good way to spend my Thursday nights. It's normally Thursday we record.
What have you learnt? I mean, what do you know now that you didn't then?
Politicians like to talk a lot. Especially certain ones, like there are certain ones that just go on and like, oh. So you learn to listen, like, to the important stuff and then tune out for the rest.
So what would you say then, if politicians are listening now, what would your advice be to politicians?
Condense everything, please, because I don't have 20 minutes to listen to you answer one question.
All right. I want to talk to Megan, who's with us now. Megan, I want to talk to you about period poverty and what they've done in Scotland with feminine hygiene products.
Yeah, they've made them free, which is really good considering that a lot of women who live around the UK can't afford it, which is a big issue considering that over here they don't really have the same, I don't know, like making it free, they haven't done it. And
what's the situation at Bala?
In Bala, they haven't really done much, sorry, but they have a red box which is it has period products in it that students can ask for, but it's paid for by our head of sixth form out of his own pocket, which he's tried to get the school to pay for it themselves to get products for. It's
a touchy subject, isn't it?
Yeah, because it's quite embarrassing for most girls to have to go through it and not have anything there for them, to not be able to have access to any products that they might need and to have to ask for it for someone else. It's quite embarrassing.
What's the situation regarding condoms?
I think, I don't know much about this topic, I'll be honest, but Mitzi knows quite a lot about
Mitzi?
it. Well, currently in the school we don't offer any free contraception, and our head of sixth form was looking at introducing that on a state-funded basis. Unfortunately, along with the period products, he was, for some unknown reason. I feel that it's actually really important that we have contraception freely available in the school, because in the UK we have some of the highest teen pregnancy rates in all of Western Europe. And we're actually one of the only countries that doesn't offer contraception in schools for students aged old enough to consent. I feel there's a lot of stigma around the topic because, everybody here is old enough to consent to sex, and yet we don't have any provision in school of being able to get free condoms. Even at the gum clinic, you have to apply on a special basis to get them. You can't walk in and get some. And I think that there's a real stigma that needs to be broken around talking about it.
Why do you think there's a stigma?
Well, I think that it's for a mixture of reasons. Older people, I feel, struggle to talk about sex with young people. I think that that's partly because it's an uncomfortable subject for anybody to talk about. But I think it's particularly because they can remember, our teachers at school can remember when we were in year 7. And it's difficult to say to someone, I remember when you were picking your nose in my lesson, I had to tell you to stop, and now you want to have free condoms in our school. And also with parents, because they remember when you were a little baby in blankets, they want to protect you from things in life. And I think that that's part of the reason young people find it really hard to talk about contraception. Also, I've found some surveys online that would suggest that men feel it's a stigma that it's a woman's responsibility to provide condoms. And that for some sort of sexual activity, it's the woman who should arrive with the condoms as opposed to the man. And I feel that that's a big part of the stigma, that men somehow feel that they're somehow exempt from having to discuss it because it's not their job.
Your head of sixth form seems remarkably enlightened.
He does, and I think that's a testament to his ability as a head of sixth form to talk to us about those issues. issues, able to talk to us openly. I had a discussion with him openly about providing free condoms in school, and he told me he's pushed for it, and he thinks that we should be having condom baskets around the sixth form centre because everybody here is 16 or over, and that's just something that hasn't been allowed.
Well, live at Ballakermeen, I want to talk to Amy. What did you want to mention, Amy? You were...
The way that exams were handled this year when they were cancelled.
How? What happened?
So we were given like a predicted grade. Originally we were given a predicted grade and then the exam boards kind of modified it, so it was changed, but that was scrapped in the end and we were given what our teachers gave us. But I still feel that that's not a representation of how we would have done if we actually sat the exams, because some people do better in mocks and some people do worse. I feel like I could have done a lot better if I sat the exams.
What was the response from the teachers? What did they say?
I think I don't blame them, because they had to do it based off evidence, and they don't have evidence that you could have performed better.
How did you feel when you knew what the situation was?
I was
Because nobody knew what was going to happen during the summer, did they?
When I found out how the grades were going to be awarded, I was a bit upset because, like most people here, I sat 2 of them early, and throughout the year I was predicted like 2 grades lower than I actually achieved in the exam. So I feel like I could have done better, and there was a better system that could have been put in place.
What are you looking forward to? I mean, when are you hoping to go to university?
Not this September, but the September.
Do you know what you're going to do?
I think either law or politics.
And which university, do you know?
I'm not sure. I was thinking Uni of Leeds.
Are you on track to get those results, do you think?
Yeah.
You are as well. Annie's next to you as well. Annie, I won't talk about what we said we weren't going to talk about. What did you want to talk about?
I wanted to talk about the virus and the way I'm vulnerable myself. I'm a type 1 diabetic along with 3 out of 4 of my household. And we were watching the news and we're told vulnerables, they're at risk, such as diabetics, asthmatics. I mean, we weren't told why. We're not sure how vulnerable we are. We weren't reached out to by anyone. And it's quite a scary thing to just be told you're in this group of people that are particularly vulnerable in this time. And it's frightening.
How did your folks take it?
They were wary. My dad is the person who doesn't have diabetes in my house, so he was able to go out and get the shopping. But we were just left confused. We didn't know if we could go out, what to do, really.
Do you know what the situation is now?
I don't,
Are you still?
actually.
Are you still? I mean, did you shield during the summertime? What
we
happened?
weren't asked to shield, but obviously when we went into lockdown, we did. But there was no special treatment, although it was we were kind of betrayed that we should be doing something different, but we were never told what.
How do you feel the government on the Isle of Man handled the COVID situation?
I don't think you can fault the government, because I think it's shown now that there's no case. There is nothing else they could have done better.
How did you feel about them sending people to jail who broke isolation?
I mean, it's unprecedented times. It means you have to do things that you wouldn't do. It makes you think, like, oh gosh. But if you're going to control this virus, then you're just going to have to oblige to what they say.
Okay, Joe, how did you feel about how the government handled the virus?
I thought during the first lockdown it was very well handled in the way that they strayed from the UK government in testing and trying to eliminate the virus and not just trying to do herd immunity. But more recently, in the way that the government has handled some of the press conferences and some of the scandals, like the burning of the letter, I think that has exposed some not so good traits in what the government has done. I think that in the whole Rachel Glover situation, I think they didn't handle that well. I think that made distrust within the public. But after all, there is no virus over here anymore, so that you have to applaud them on that.
How did you feel about that letter thing?
I thought it was... I think it's a difficult situation because for everyone involved in the way that it was handled, but I'm not sure what I would have done in that situation as well. I don't think it should have been destroyed, or to be honest, I'm not really quite sure what I would do.
But I mean,
situation.
as far as you say, we now have no cases on the Isle of Man, unprecedented right around the world. So we're in the situation we're in at the moment. Obviously, the vaccine's on its way, but lots of people aren't allowed to come back to the Isle of Man. There are some Manx people who want to come back to the Isle of Man who can't, and they're.
I think that's tricky because you have to draw the line between having too many people come over to having the right amount of people. But I think that the system in place now is necessary in that it allows people, residents over, but it stops too many people coming over.
Do you think it was right to let all the students back?
I do. I think that for them to be stuck in their halls of residence over Christmas would have just been morally wrong.
Well, some of them have stayed over in the UK,
Yeah.
haven't they? I think somebody here had who had a brother or sister? Oh,
That was me, yeah.
Joe, yeah. Sam, sorry,
Yeah.
it's your brother.
My brother, yeah. He was at Queen's University in Belfast, and he's come over, returned, just recently.
Okay, so he's isolating at the moment.
Yeah, yeah.
He's not the one in the tent on the.
No, don't worry. That's when he comes back home after isolating.
And how are things in Belfast for him?
Well, coronavirus over there is actually, it's much more serious. They're in full lockdown, and they haven't handled it. It's harder for them because they're not an isolated island. But yeah, it's worse. And he was struggling with it towards the end. I think a lot of people were. Well, it's just quite scary. It's quite scary living in a society where everywhere you go, there is a risk of getting a disease which has been so publicly displayed and is very dangerous. There's also, I think that's the main thing: the pressure and the fear.
During the summer, did you personally feel threatened by COVID? Did it ever, did it play on your mind?
There was. You were stressed. The thing that worried me most is all of my family lives in England. In the kind of north, with particularly badly affected areas. So that was what worried me most. But yeah, I none of my close family got it on the island, so I was all right.
Ollie, how do you feel the Manx government handled COVID?